Okay. So last week we did start our trip down the world of mapping in iOS. Tonight, what I plan on doing, we'll see how the plan works out, but the idea is tonight we will continue with it and we'll add some more functionality to our mapping app. So right now we have, I'm going to just run this while I'm talking so we can get the simulator up and going. So right now we have functionality where we set a location, and then from that location we pull down stores that are near us, Foot Locker stores. And if the wrong people see this recording, I could probably get in trouble for doing this, but no bother. Anyway, so we pull down Foot Locker store information, and then we put little pins on our map, little annotations on the map, and just display where they're at. So tonight what I plan on doing is putting the user location on the map, and then adding functionality whereby the user can tap one of the store pins, one of the pins on the map, and then that will bring up directions. That'll offer directions, and then it'll create a polyline route that'll actually route them to that store. And then we'll add a little thing called a call out to the pin that will have kind of like with the table view controller or the table view cell, you have a little arrow that's like a disclosure indicator. We'll add something like that to the pin that'll allow them to tap that, and then that will in turn take them to a table view with the list of directions all listed out. So fair amount of stuff. Yep, there it is. The map is still working. Good to see. Yay. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're somewhere in here. So if I zoom in on it. Ooh, we got it twisted. Yeah, so we're out in here. So we have to put the user location on there based off our latitude and longitude. Since with the simulator we don't have GPS capability, we're just going to tell it and then put the marker on there based on what we tell it. So anyway, let's see, we have our latitude and longitude figure out. We're going to add, in order to fully implement mapping functionality, right now we've got a more or less a non-interactive map. So we have this map that we plop these pins on, which is all cool, but it's not fully interactive. So to get that full featured functionality, once again, we need to implement the delegate protocol procedure or method of doing stuff. So our view controller is going to have to become a MK map view delegate, and then it's going to handle certain functions that are going to get passed along to it. And so we got our list of stores, we got that done, stores loaded. So last week, by way of review, we did this call to get the stores, ran this guy asynchronously. This passes back a list of the stores, and then we posted a notification. So we used the notification center, posted a notification when we were done getting the stores, and then we handled that in our stores loaded method, and then in here this is where we put our markers on there. So that's where we left off. Okay, so first thing, we're probably going to need to get something unique, at least unique from the other markers that we're using to show our home. And I don't have one of these handily loaded already. Alright, so what I'm going to do is go out and look for like a home icon that we can use. Little marker guy that shows where home is. That one's not bad. See a few that look pretty good. You can pick whatever you want. It's got to be kind of small. So I'm actually kind of looking for something small here. Because this will be long on the map with the pins and stuff, so it can't be too huge. So our home can't take up like 10 blocks or anything. Let's see here. Yeah, this guy will probably work. Alright. Copy him off and open up preview. And with preview, we have the nice feature new from clipboard, which allow you to paste it right in. And that's a pretty humongous icon that I got. So I'm going to resize them. I'm just going to resize this guy. Wow, it's huge. See what happens if I shrink it down to like 50 by 50 pixels here. That's not proportion either. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, it'll work. All right. But the other thing I want to do before I do that, I want to make sure that the background is transparent, which it looks like it is. Not completely. I don't want to get rid of my home though. All right, good enough. I'm just going to shrink it. 50 pixels roughly is about as big as you probably want to go. I'm just going to call it home. Alright, don't need Blackboard right now. Don't need this stuff right now. Alright. So with my home guy, I'm going to drag him over here and plop him in. And then we have a home marker. Okay, so that'll be differentiated from our pin markers that mark our stores. Easily recognizable. All right. So if you guys have that guy ready to go, we are going to add a couple of things for variables in our view controller class. Because we're going to need to keep track of. So when we do, what we're going to do is we're going to make a call out to Apple's mapping services, and we're going to request directions to get to this store, our marker. And so we're going to get back a list of what are called MK route objects. And the routes will have steps in them. The steps are the directions. The routes will also have a distance in them, distance variable. And other relative, they'll even have sometimes they even have like phone numbers. So if it is an established business that's registered with mapping services, it'll actually have like a phone number and everything in it, which is kind of cool. But anyway, we're going to need variables to hold that. So I'm going to actually start documenting this stuff so we can see what's new from this week. All right, so we're going to need a, first thing we're going to need is a selected, need to know which one of our markers is selected. That is a store marker. And then we're also going to need the current route. And this is actually going to be an array of these guys, MK route objects. Because when you call to the service, when you call the Apple service, it actually brings back, usually, not always, but it often brings back several routes. And it does that because if you've ever done like a search on like Google Maps or something, or Apple, usually it will give you 2 or 3 different routes that you can take. One might be like the least time estimated, another one would be like the least distance, and then like third it's like the scenic route or something like that, I don't know. But usually they'll give you like several routes, so that for that reason when we make the call to get the directions, we're actually going to get back an array of these guys. So basically one array of routes will constitute the route for our store. Even though there's more than one, that's what we'll assign to the way we're going to get to the store. And we'll just probably pick the top one off of that list. I think they're usually ordered by time, so they'll usually give the fastest one first. Okay. So next thing we need to do is create a little method that's going to, well, before we do that, let's go ahead and make this guy a delegate. mkMapViewDelegate. I forgot the comma, that's why it's not giving me anything. ViewDelegate. And the MapViewDelegate I don't think has any mandatory things, which is kind of nice. So you don't get an error when you go ahead and implement, or you add that to your implementation list, because it doesn't have anything mandatory. It's just got optional things that you can implement. Okay. So next thing we want to do is we need to, this is really ugly. All right, next thing we need to do is create a method to display our home location. So I'm going to create a function for that. Call it set user location. So normally you would have, if you're using geolocation services, core location classes, it would send you updates when the user, periodically, whenever there's any movement at all on the part of the user, it sends you an update, and then that's how you'd set the user location, is with that update. But in our case, we're just going to do it manually. So we can say, we can create a store marker that represents our home. And let's see, it's the title of it, location, namely current location, and then the coordinate is going to be a CLL coordinate, location coordinate 2D, and that guy is going to be constructed from our latitude and longitude. It's kind of acting kind of weird. Oh, that's why I'm not. This is, we'll see what happens here. All right. I think I have to, yeah. So I'm not sure why it didn't give me this in IntelliSense, but it didn't give me the latitude colon longitude colon, which is what I was expecting. Sometimes it doesn't do that, I noticed, but then if you just type it out with the actual parameters, it'll say, hey, wait a minute, you forgot this. So, and then the phone, you just say 401000, whatever. Don't know what that connects to. All right, so that will be our home marker. And then we can just call self.mapView.add annotation and add him in. And then we have a home marker. That sets user location. And then up in our viewDidLoad, we can go ahead and set them up there. And voila. All right, so that is all fine and well. However, let's see what happens if I run this. Yep. So there it is. So there's our stores, and here we are. So it doesn't have the fancy little home marker. And that is to be expected because we never told it, hey, for us, you need to use the home marker. So that gets into the whole delegate part of our view controller. MK map view delegate implements certain methods that, just like a table view controller does, that when you're ready to do something or you need some information, our view controllers say, oh, here it is, here you go. One of those things is if you want to create a custom annotation that's not just a standard pin, then you have to implement a function to provide that special annotation for for the view controller, for the map to display, I should say. So before we go any further, is everyone following along so far? Okay. All right. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to implement that what's called the map view view for annotation. So thus far, what we've done is we have created store markers, and store markers are the special class we made that implements this MK annotation. But actually, the MK annotation kind of rides inside of a MK annotation view object that kind of gets created for us. But we're going to create our own special one here in a moment. All right, I didn't. I'm just documenting this stuff here so we can differentiate. All right. There. So down here, this is as good a spot as any. I think if you just start typing map view, yep. So this map view works just like table view or just like picker view delegates. You start typing map, it'll give you the list of stuff. Now that we're a delegate, it'll give you the list of stuff available. And what we want is the view, not view for overlay, but view for annotation. This guy here. So this is the one that allows us to make special markers and stuff. And you notice that what it returns is an MK annotation view. So this is where, if you want to have like special icons and stuff, like in our Footlocker app, we have little pictures of referees. That's what marks our stores. Stuff like that, you got to implement this guy. All right, so first thing we want to do is we want to tell, this gets called for every single one of the annotations that gets plopped on our map. So we need to, because of that, and because our user's location is one of those annotations, we have to differentiate between the special case where it's the user's location and if it's a store. So there's two different scenarios. So we can say, if the annotation dot coordinates I think we're going to have to do it. Yeah, we're not going to be able to do a full. I have to say dot latitude. We have to do a simple comparison. Equals self dot lat, and that's probably good enough because it goes down. It'll compare all the way down to like hundredth of a decimal point. So the latitude's the same. It's a pretty safe bet that you've got the. We could do if the latitude and the longitude are the same, but I think this will be adequate. Okay, so if the annotation.coordinate equals our latitude, so in other words, this particular annotation is our home button, then we need to do something different. And what we need to do differently is we need to tell it which icon to show rather than the normal one. So we're going to create an annotation view. And we'll use this one, the annotation with reuse identifier. Very similar to what you may recall with table view cells. And the annotation is the one that's passed into us. Type the right keys, that would help. Annotation. Reuse identifier is, I don't know, home. No, we can use this for all of them. Doesn't matter. Now, annotation view, or annotate view is what I call it. Annotate view has an image property. Very handy. It allows us to set our custom image, and we can just use image named, and that is just called home. And then the other thing we'll do is say annotate view dot can. Actually, we don't need this here. I'm going to get rid of this. There's a property called annotation view can show callout, which means when you tap on it, it pops up the bubble, and then the bubble, you can do stuff with the bubble, which we'll do later. But we'll add that code into for all of the markers, so we won't keep it in this if block. In fact, actually, I don't want that to probably. We can. Yeah. Yeah, we'll go ahead and. Well, I'm really just torn here. This is such a huge decision. All right. All right. Equals true. We'll say yeah, we can do that, and then we'll just return it. All right. So that's the user location. Now, the reason why I'm doing it a little bit different is because this guy is a special case with the home view. It's an MK annotation view, which the MK annotation view has the ability to kind of customize it. But with all the rest of our stuff, all these pins, it's much easier and faster to implement those, since we want them to be pins, to implement them as just pin annotations, which is a different class. So that's why I got this kind of broken out here. So we'll say let's store view equals MK pin, yep, MK pin annotation view. Same kind of thing. You use the annotation and the reuse identifier. I'll still call it marker. Actually, we're going to want to use a different one for these, aren't I? Duh. All right. Store. Let's say the same thing with this one. You want to say yes, we do want to show the call out. That's the bubble thing again. And then the other thing we're going to want to do is say with these. So with these, what we're going to do again is when they tap on them, right now it just shows, that's our home view. Right now it just shows the name and the title and subtitle kind of thing. We want to have a little info eye there, or a disclosure thing, that when they tap on that, it actually takes them off to see the directions. If they tap on the pin itself, we have this, but we're also, in addition to the bubble, it's bonus day, they're going to get a polyline showing them the directions to the store. So all kinds of amazing things going on here. So when we're done with this actually won't be too bad of an app. But, of course, it's already been done, and that's trademarked and everything. So what we probably want to do is, for the assignment, we'll have you guys probably come up with something that you find interesting. Yes, there'll be an assignment after tonight. I'm going to have you guys create a mapping app, but what we'll probably do is not reuse this, but have you guys take whatever it is you're interested in, be a different kind of store. It can be baseball stadiums, it can be schools, it can be whatever you want, and auto parts stores. And then you'll need to find, for example, latitudes and longitudes for those, and plop them on a plist. And then instead of loading your store locations from a web API, you can load them out of your P list, display them on the map, and then voila. So there you go. There's the assignment. I just thought of it. Okay. Happy with that. I think that's reasonable. Okay, can show callout is true. And then so then the next thing we need to do is say store view.write callout accessory view equals, we'll create a button, and we're going to use the type. The type of the button is going to be a UI button type. Type dot disclosure, detail disclosure. Perfect. And then of course we need to return that. Okay, so this is where we create our home button, and because the actual marker class that we made doesn't have any knowledge of what image or anything, the beauty of this is actually kind of a good object-oriented approach, because the creator of this map has the knowledge of how it wants to lay things out. So the map view is the one, or the map view delegate is the class that says, okay, I want a home button here and I want store buttons here. So the home button I'm going to create with this image, and the actual annotation itself, all it cares about is the title. I mean, we could put like an image in here too, and then set the image by itself. That's fine to do it that way too, but we're handling it in the delegate. So we're close to being able to implement that. One thing we're missing, as with all other delegates, we say self dot map view dot delegate equals us equals self. All right, and I think that should be what we need to go ahead and wing this. Oh yeah, yep, there it is. Kind of huge. Pretty full of ourselves. All right, there. So there's our little infographic guy, our little button. Right now it doesn't do anything. I'm going to have to shrink my home icon down a tad here. So again, you can do that if you need to. I can say show in Finder and open them up a preview. Preview likes to just smack that sucker all the way up in the upper left-hand corner of the left-hand screen. All right, I'm going to, oops, tools, adjust size. I'll make it like maybe 28. And rerun them. Did an in-place edit, so it should. Yeah, it's a little more reasonable. Still kind of big, but good enough for now. Okay, so got our disclosure indicator, which is perfect. We want that. All right, so looking good so far. Is everyone following along okay? Everything going good? Any problems? All right. Okay, so now that we have that in place, the next thing we want to do is if they tap on this guy up here, Amro or whatever that is, Sturgeon Bay, Green Bay up in here, we want to actually draw a polyline. That's that blue line that you see on maps that routes them out to where they want to go. Okay, so to do that, we're going to need to implement a method, and this is just going to be our own. Cleverly named getDirections. So this is not a map view method or anything like that. This is just something we're creating. Actually, this needs to have a little bit more than this. It needs to have a parameter in here. Destination. And destination is a CLL location coordinate 2D. So they tap on one of the markers, we get the coordinate of it, and then we pass it into this guy to get us a set of directions. So now we're going to be utilizing pretty heavily the iOS map kit functionality. Map kit is actually pretty robust. You can get driving directions, walking directions. Sometimes you can even get like transit directions. So it's pretty cool. The simulator also. Maybe not. I might have to do it. Yeah, I thought there was a way. Through the simulator to actually display it in like Earth view, but I think that has to be done probably through the program, through the code. So anyway, but what we're doing, this should be good. So in get directions, we're going to form a request object, which is a MK directions request. All right, so there's a lot of layers to mapping. So they did a really nice job of kind of architecting it in such a way that you can get all the information you need out of pretty simple requests. You just have to know how far to dig in to get what you want. So the request is going, in order to formulate a request, we need to get at a MK map item. So what we're going to do is create what we call place marks. This is a MK place mark. And we're going to pass in the coordinates. Well, before we get to that point, oh no, that's okay, we can do that. Actually, I want to use a different one. Change my mind. I think there's a latitude, longitude one. I think that's a little bit easier. No, I guess not. I guess that's my choice. All right. So yeah, that's all right. We'll just make this guy. We'll just make this bad boy on the fly. So we're BA iOS developers. All right. CL location coordinate 2D. Easy enough. Here's this weirdness again. All right. Latitude is self.lat. So this is going to be our start point. And it's so weird how it doesn't. All right. Longitude self.lon.
Must be angry with you.
Yeah, it's weird. It's not giving me the. But then when I start typing, it's like, oh yeah, that's what you need. You're right. Okay. It's kind of pseudo IntelliSense. Okay. Address dictionary we can leave empty. Although this is handy for when you want to do like a geocoded search where you got like a zip code or address list. And yeah, okay, so this is kind of weird. You gotta insert that colon in there because it's an empty dictionary, and to signify an empty dictionary, that's how you do it. Okay, so now the request object has a source. Which is an MK map item. And the MK map item, as you might guess, is constructed using a place mark, which we just created. So that's the starting point in our request. And then, as you might guess, we have to provide it the finish point. So we'll call this finish place equals an MK place mark. Now, in this case, we have our coordinate, our CLL coordinate, CLL equation coordinate 2D passed into us right here. So we can just use that. Address dictionary, again, is just going to be that empty dictionary array. And then we go request dot destination is going to be equal to an MK map item with our finish place. I'm going to also comment this while we're at it. Oops. No, we want a bunch of stars, not oops, okay. 8. There we go. Boom. Some of you, by the way, have excellent inline documentation. I'm extremely impressed. Some of you don't, but that's okay, because we're not really covering inline documentation here, because I am quite certain and very confident that Volker covered it at length. So, but some of you have very good inline documentation, which doesn't really matter a whole lot when you're creating the app, but it sure does matter when you go back and try and edit it. Okay, so all right, so next thing we need is a set of directions. Oops. Is a MK directions object, and you need a request for that, which is the request we just created. So the directions, you tell it where you're starting from, where you're going to, and then you create one of these directions objects. And every single one of them, as you can see, has the MK for MapKit as a prefix. So we're utilizing all the MapKit stuff. Again, if you use geolocation, that's all CL or core location. When you're actually interacting with the map itself, or even their mapping services, which is what we're doing, that's an MK prefix. All right, so now what we need to do is call the directions object. It's pretty fancy. It's got its own method, calculate directions with completion handler. Nothing like explaining what you're going to do in the name of the function. All right, so in here, this gets a little bit complicated. We have, this is another one of these completion handler things. So what we're going to end up with is this, our starting curly bracket, and then we're going to have some parameters that we're passing in. So we have like a parameter list that's going to be a response object. Oops. And the response is a MK direction response. And then we're going to have an error object, which is just NS error. Closes off the paren. And then we're going to say, actually, no, not there. Okay, whoa, didn't like that. Have the in, and then down at the end here, we should have this, but I don't think we do because it's really, really getting annoyed with what I'm doing here. Okay, this we don't need. And now we just got a simple error. Error. Ah, thank you. Perfect. It might be that it is looking for some of this stuff. Yep, that was it. So when you got these completion handlers, usually when you have a wrapped object like that, and you're missing the question mark or the exclamation point, it'll fix it for you. But in this case, we're kind of defining the completion handler as we go. So it's like, no, it's not the right object type, but I can't really tell you because that's going to come out in the next version of Xcode. All right, so what we're doing calling the calculate directions with the completion handler with this response object, and then this is what gets passed back, and then also possibly an error. If there was an error that occurred, it passes that back. So what we can do very easily is we can check to see if the error is nil or not. It's not equal to nil. We know something went horribly wrong. And we can print it, say error.description. Else, we can do some stuff. And in here, this will be our method to display the directions, which we have not created yet. But we will. Is everyone following along so far? Okay, all right. Next thing we need to do is this. Okay, so we're going to call show route. We'll call this guy. And we will pass into it a, actually, it's probably better named as a response. We're going to pass in an MK directions response. And that, of course, is coming from right up here. Okay, so this guy has got, this is a pretty complex object. It's got a lot of stuff in it, like I said. What we're looking for primarily is we're going to start off at the route level. We can do it all caps. 4, I really want it a lot. Okay, 4. See what it does here. Yeah, perfect. That's what I want. That's cool. I haven't actually seen that before. For route, in response.routes. And this is going to return this. And this is a very simple thing that we do now. Just say map view add overlay. And the overlay that we're going to add is in the route object. It is the polyline. I'm expecting something else here. All right, because we need to tell it how we want it rendered. It's just really weird the way it's acting. All right. So what it needs next is MK overlay level. Yes, above roads. Yeah, I know it's missing because you didn't really give it to me. All right. Kind of weird. It's behaving oddly. All right, so that's what we want. So the polyline is the little guy, the blue line or red line. You can make it any color you want, actually. Typically, they're blue in iOS. That shows you the route on the map. And that's just called with add overlay. And I think, actually, that's probably all we need to do. Then we have our current route, which we are going to use when we pass over to our directions view controller. That guy we need to save off. So we created that variable at the beginning of class called current route. So we're going to use that to hold that. And we'll set that equal to first one. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. Use all of them because we're going to keep it as an array. Like that. Okay, so now that's what we're going to call up here. Now that we have that coded, we can call show route. And we can pass in our response object from our call. And then that'll show the route with an exclamation point. And I want something else. Oh yeah, self. Again, we need the self because of the fact we're now inside a completion handler, which actually threads itself off. Okay. That looks like it would work. But I can pretty much guarantee, well, we added two more things. First of all, we have to add a handler so when the user taps on the pin, they get this route. So that's one thing we need to do. Another thing we're going to need to do, though, is I'll show you in a little bit. So first things first, we need to add in our tap handler. So when they tap on the pin, so this is going to be a did select annotation. Did select annotation view. That guy. And now we can call get directions. All right, so we can say let's annotation. And the annotation is going to be contained in this view object. As I mentioned, the view MK annotation view wraps the annotation view.annotation. Pardon? Oh, an annotation. Thank you. We're just getting crazy with naming tonight. Whole lack of IntelliSense things got me rattled. Oh yeah, we're going to want to do this too, probably. It's not just any annotation, it's one of our special ones. And now we can use that guy to call get directions. And the destination is going to be annotation dot coordinate. That's the destination. Start point is our current location, and that should do it for us. So this is the annotation again. Did select annotation view, so when you tap on one of the pins, this should happen. But I'll give you a hint. I did mention briefly that there are two things we had to do, and we just did one of them. So if I tap on this guy, you notice there's no pretty polyline created because we didn't do the second thing. And again, it gets back to the delegate protocol thing. So we have to implement another delegate protocol, and that is what actually is used to render our polyline, and that's also what we can use to customize our polyline. So again, to get that, we can just type map view render for overlay. No, not view for overlay, renderer for overlay. So we got a view for overlay, now we got a renderer for overlay. And the renderer is what actually, as the name implies, renders the overlay. So this allows us to configure how we want the overlay to look. You can make it different widths, different colors, that kind of stuff. So this is a MK polyline renderer. And you pass in an overlay, which is passed into us. And then you can do cool stuff like render dot stroke color. And this is the UI color stuff. Standard is blue, of course. You can make it whatever you want. Line width. I find that the really wide ones don't look as good, so I tend to make mine a little bit narrower. Oops. And then we can just return that. Okay, so I think now we have that in place. We should have everything that we need. Yeah, so my little info bubble is kind of covering it up, but you can see it drew the polyline. Pretty much straight shot down the mass. And I tap on another one. Yep, there it is. Zing! Off we go to Appleton. And we have Milwaukee. Boom. You can make these different colors too if you wanted to. You could have some kind of logic in your renderer guy that what you could probably do is keep like a global counter up here of some kind. Poly count. And then as you go along, once you get into your renderer renderer. Say case 0. Render.stroke color is blue. Case 1. Make him red. Oops, I don't need that. I'll just go up to 2 and then have a default. But you can go crazy with it if you want. Make it orange. And then I'm going to take this outside of my break, the stuff with the line width. And I also need to increment my, you also need to increment your poly count in here. So otherwise you're always going to end up with blue. Here's an interesting little tidbit. So I don't know why Apple's decided to do this. It goes contrary to every other programming language in the world. That's probably why they decided to do it. But the increment counter and the decrement counters are very common standard practice in just about every language. C++, JavaScript, C, you name it, C#, it's in every one of them, but they have decided to deprecate it. So that's why you get a warning here. So now they want you to do the old-fashioned plus equals 1 style, which is fine. But just so you know, they actually, with Swift 3.0, so we're on Swift 2.0, with Swift 3.0, they have put forth the ominous warning when they come out with that. If you have increment operators like that, it will actually cause a compile error. So if you have code that you have running, it'll break in Swift 3.0. So, that's my red one. There's my green one. There's my orange one. And I have like pretty lines going all over the map. Okay. So that's a good place to leave off. We got our awesome looking map going on. So I am going to stop the recording of this so we don't end up with a bloated video that crashes the system, and then I'll pick it up after break, 10 minutes.